On this episode of the Star Trek Universe podcast, we are jumping into Star Trek Nemesis on our path to Picard. We also have a new song by The Garage, inspired by Nemesis. All that right after this.
Welcome to the Star Trek Universe podcast. My name is Matthew Carroll.
I'm David C. Robertson.
All right, we have watched Nemesis in our preparation for Picard, and we are going to talk about it. Well, what are your initial takeaways of Star Trek Nemesis, my friend?
I liked it better than I remembered liking it.
Same here.
But not much better.
I actually liked it substantially more. It still has really dumb scenes. So, like, I gave it a lot of thought while I'm watching this movie. And if they take out the Doom buggy, if you take out the fighting with the Viceroy under the in the bowels of the ship, and I feel like there was one other thing. But basically, there's only a few things. If you remove those things, this movie is pretty good. But it's got some really dumb scenes.
It's got some major plot holes.
Interesting. Please. I feel like last two episodes we spent most of the time talking about all the flaws in these movies and why we don't have a huge problem with them. So I don't want to spend the entire cast. We also have more time today. We're not in as much of a rush as we were last two times. So I just don't want to spend the entire time being negative. It is Nemesis. It is both of our least favorite. But let's. That's true. I don't want to just shit on it. Especially because I do think there's a lot of good here. Particularly, I think so. My problem with Nemesis is I feel like it was written for kids or by kids. I'm not sure which. It just feels like they were like, well, we need something good for Picard to face. How about an evil Picard? You know, it just feels like that sort of silly frame of thinking.
Well, it was surprising because it was written by John Logan, the guy that wrote Gladiator. And the story was by John Logan and Brent Spiner.
Yeah. I mean, I like Gladiator fine. It doesn't resonate with me as like the most amazingly written movie. It's well acted and it's a lot of good fighting. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah. I mean, I know that John Logan was a fan of Star Trek from his wee years. So
right.
It's a little surprising. And, you know, also a lot of, I have heard that there was a huge amount of footage on the cutting room floor. And the director, Stuart Bayard, I believe this was his first film. He was the assistant director of U.S. Marshals or something like that.
Right.
And Marina Sirtis has gone on record as saying that he's an idiot.
That's
and
good.
Several others have been like, he didn't really get Star Trek. Most of them are pretty diplomatic about it. She is not.
Sure. Let me make a case for what I think is wrong with this movie, and that in its bones, I think it has some strengths.
Okay.
So I think that what Star Trek to me has always been about, it's about characters being clever. It's not about shoot 'em up, bang 'em up. You don't win the fight by just fighting better. You know what I mean? You win the fight by outthinking your opponent. That's what Star Trek to me has always been about. If there's going to be a battle, you should win. Honestly, most any show I like is that way. I don't really like a show that just like, oh, that guy hit harder and faster, so he wins. You know what I mean? I want a guy who can outthink. And this movie, the characters are clever, but they do all the clever shit off screen. There's this whole thing, and it's well structured within the plot and within the movie. This whole thing about B4, so they bring the ship, and I found myself going, why isn't the Enterprise realize that B4 is a trap? It turns out they did realize that B4 is a trap. It's just that all happens off screen. And it's like this weird trick they play. It's like they do this this thing with B4 where they structure the reveal like it's a heist movie, where they did all this stuff in the background to like swap out the transponder in B4 and put it in Data and change it around so that they beam B4 instead Data. That's a clever trick they pulled on Shinzon, but that all happens off screen. It's almost unnoticeable. Like it's actually really a clever plot that they pull on Shinzon. They get the one up on him, but that all happens off screen. And then the other clever thing they do in this movie to defeat Shinzon is they ram the ship. He makes the decision that to save Earth, he's willing to like sacrifice his entire crew. Okay. That is a huge moment for Picard to say, my family, I'm okay if my family dies if we save Earth, you know? And he doesn't know that about me. He doesn't know. He thinks he knows what I'm going to do. He thinks I'm going to do whatever I have to save. He wants me to see me eye to eye. Shinzon wants to see me eye to eye. So he thinks that he can trap me into that by risking, by threatening my family. But I'm going to show him that we all are family and we care about the Federation and that survival more than we care about ourselves. Yeah. And he rams the ship. That's a beautiful moment. It is a really well thought out, interesting moment for Picard as a character. The problem is 60% of the screen time while he's making that decision is Riker rolling around on a bridge with a fucking vampire. So like when it should be this should be like the classic Khan or like Khan versus Kirk moment where like they're sitting and he's deliberating and he's thinking and you're watching him figure it out how he can defeat Shinzon, and instead the entire time is spent rolling around with a vampire down under the decks. And it really is paced horribly.
Yeah, it's paced pretty poorly. And I'm confused that, like, if the Scimitar reversed their engines and just went backwards, wouldn't they just drag the Enterprise with it?
I mean, it depends on how much they're stuck in there.
Yeah, I mean, they look pretty lodged.
But I mean, you see a whole lot of pulling and like metal breaking and all this stuff.
Yeah, I know.
It just depends on how much they're actually lodged together. And
I'm just saying, like, the Enterprise wasn't affixed to anything, so
right. It is in space. Yeah. No, I'm with you. I'm with you. There's not a whole lot to. I agree. That is very likely the inertia would not. They just had to have some sort of grip on them, and it just depends on how much that grip was. So it's feasible what happened. It's just not. Yeah. Also, why didn't he say self-destruct while they were inside the Scimitar?
Yeah, that was confusing.
Like he waits till they pull out, and then they're like, now self-destruct. Like, you should have said initiate self-destruct sequence before you plowed into him, you know?
Yeah, I mean, they're still, with the warp core and everything, they were still close enough that they would have taken them out too. Yeah,
that's true.
I thought it was funny, like, I felt like John Logan was like, we should do self-destruct, and then someone went, no. I mean, he would probably say that in this situation, but we can't do it in another movie.
Yeah, no, I kind of loved that, actually. That moment in the movie where you're like, self-destruct, like always. Oh, it doesn't work. That's funny. That made me laugh. I enjoyed that.
Yeah.
Pardon my neighbor's dog, everybody. My neighbor's dog is outside barking all of a sudden.
It's all right.
I don't know if it's picking up on the mic.
It is.
Oh, good. That dog normally doesn't bark too long. If it was my dog, I'd have to go handle it because my dog will just bark for hours.
What I liked about the movie, I like everything. Probably, like, I don't even mind the dune buggy, honestly, at this point. Like, I was surprised to find that I didn't hate it this time. I was just sort of like, there's nothing, like, I have been hard pressed to look at these movies with fresh eyes and say, and by fresh eyes, I mean, toss away any kind of preconceived notion that you had before you went into this movie the first time. Is there any real reason they can't have the Argo on the Enterprise?
No, not at all.
Is there any reason Picard wouldn't enjoy doing that? We know what kind of younger man he was. Maybe in his older age, he's kind of loosening up a little bit.
Sure. It just seems like, and everyone's made this case. It's not new. I was on Trekcast the other day, by the way, if you guys get a chance. I guessed it over there. And they were talking about how there's two Picards. There's like the TV Picard, who's like, the man who stands on the bridge and gives orders and makes decisions. And there's the movie Picard, like who's just like a different guy. He called him Sarah Connor, which I thought was very funny. This particular, there's two moments. There's the moment you're talking about with the Argo. And like, I get it. Like, why not? Why not want to go ride around on a dune buggy? Who wouldn't? But like, it's also not really it's not in this character that we know of. And that one doesn't bother me as much as the much dumber scene to me, which is kind of the same kind of decision when he gets into the Romulan shuttle, little fighter shuttle, and decides... It doesn't
let Data do it?
Yeah, it doesn't let Data drive. That is not a Picard move. Like, you're in danger, your ship's in danger, your planet is in danger, and you're not going to let Data drive out of some flyboy sensibility. Like, that's not the Picard I know, you know?
Yeah, well, yes and no. The not letting Data fly, I feel like the Argo scene is somewhat there structurally to give us that bit of Picard, but
agreed.
It's to almost explain it, but we do know that guy. We've seen Next Generation. We've seen this is the Picard that cheated the Nausicaan and got his heart run through. This is
sure when he was a very much younger man. I don't. Yeah, it's weird to revert his character back to, hey, he had a fight with the Nausicaan once.
I don't think it's. I feel like his character growth. Like, he's learned to balance himself. He's learned to. It feels like he's learned to take both sides of himself. I mean, I think this is an arc that started for real in generations, not generations.
All good things.
No, well, yes, that too, but like they really hit that pretty hard in Insurrection.
Yeah, for sure.
Where he's sort of just coming to this realization, like, no, I should go on away missions. No, I am doing this for a different reason. For different reasons that I originally started out, and there is this part of me that, as I'm getting older, I need to exercise these muscles again. I want to have fun again. I want to be with my family again. I want to have a family again. I don't want to just cut myself off from everyone.
I agree with all of that, and I think that's all a good defense of the dune buggy scene. I don't think it's a good defense of the Romulan shuttle scene.
I agree. I agree. The Romulan shuttle scene is not. I'm not defending that. I'm just saying this is what I think. This is what they were thinking.
Yeah, for sure.
For real, Data should have been driving that.
Yeah, he couldn't tell what buttons did what, and Data clearly knew. Okay, so getting out of the way of all that dumb shit. There's some dumb shit in this movie that I feel like could be edited out, and this movie would be like a pretty solid outing in the Star Trek franchise. And the things that make me feel it's a solid outing are the real questions of Shinzon versus Picard. I think there's some really cool stuff with Tom Hardy's Shinzon talking to Picard about the kind of man they ended up. It's nature versus nurture in its like purest form, and I just freaking love what they do with it. And I wish they had spent more time on it and developed it more. The movie moves at such a pace, and they keep trying to have laser fights, and I really wanted it to slow down and have like a conversation. Like, Picard finds out Shinzon is his is him, is a clone, and he doesn't really have any reaction beyond the throne room scene. He looks surprised, but then he goes over to the ship and, like, I don't know, it seems like there'd be like other characters that have reactions to, oh my gosh, there's a clone of Picard that's leading the Romulans. Like, that's a big deal. And it just seems like that information is dropped, and it's like, it's treated like any other like survey of a gas cloud, Yeah. But that's the stuff I wanted them to drill down on, and they do a little bit. I love the scene when everything that Tom Hardy says to Picard about, the victory of the Echo over the Voice, great line.
All of that, yeah, that's good.
Talking about, I am you. He's like, hey, what's the line? He says something to the effect of, I could never do something like that. Talking about destroying Earth. And he says, I am you. Like you would, you clearly would do something like that, and that's really compelling, and I love it. I really love it.
And I do think that Picard's more reckless behaviors are especially needed in this movie to highlight that yes, this is the man he could have become. And then they show Tom Hardy as the cadet. Now we know that Picard had hair as a cadet. There's no reason he couldn't have shaved it 1 week.
Yeah, no, sure.
But it is dumb that they left him bald to drive home the point. Like
look, it's Picard. Remember, he's bald.
I'm like, yeah, I know. I remember Tapestry where he had hair. Yeah, that's what I remember.
Yeah, but I'm sure Starfleet's a few years. Not just a week. He could have gone a whole year with a shaved head. It's fine.
That's what I'm saying. I'm saying.
Yeah, it's all fine.
I just think it's dumb they had to drive home that point.
Yeah. It's silly. There's a lot of silly stuff in this movie that you could edit. Like, I almost feel like you could do an edit of this movie that would be really good.
I want to see all the footage. I want to see everything because I know that there are some deleted scenes I've seen that work wonderfully, and then others that I'm like, yeah, I see why that was gone. But there was so much, and there was a lot of character work apparently, from what I understand, that went by the wayside. But I'm curious to know if they jump into some of the big weird things that happen, like explaining how exactly the scimitar was built at a hidden base. What hidden base? You're a Reman. Well, what hidden base do you have access to?
Well, the Remans, their whole planet is for mining dilithium and building weapons, they say. So I'm assuming I know it's controlled by the Romulans, but I'm assuming they somehow, built a resistance and built also they had help from the Romulan military. They said specifically.
And why that?
Because the Romulan military, the Romulan Senate didn't want to attack Earth. And the military wanted to. That's the whole thing. The military thinks that Starfleet is an enemy and needs to be taken out, and the Senate wasn't agreeing, and that's why those characters in the Romulan military decided to support Shinzon and his rise to power.
Well, that's fine to say, but you would think the military would understand that if they attack Earth, there are hundreds of other worlds who are going to come to Earth's defense.
Well,
Earth
I don't mean Earth.
The
I mean the Federation. They think they can take out they think they're ready for a war with the Federation. There's the military.
No way. That doesn't even make sense. But it also doesn't make sense that we have the Romulan Praetor talking about Remus has still been underserving of their quota for dilithium, and you can say that's because they're building this freaking scimitar thing. That's why they haven't been meeting their quota. Sure. But why the Romulans are traditionally very, very paranoid, and I would say any group that has a whole planet and is capable of warp drive and all this stuff would be able to, I don't know, surveil shit, and I understand that makes sense because the military is in Shinzon's favor, but the military just spent a ton of years beating the shit out of Shinzon because, as Shinzon put it, the only thing that they hated more than the prisoner or the Remans were me. Why would they support his rise to power? Is it just because he was a strong military leader in the Dominion War?
I mean, that's what it sounds like. It sounds like he rose up through the ranks, and that's what compels me a lot. The idea that Picard, who is this captain who has done so many great things for the Federation, if raised differently, he still has all those same strengths, and he becomes this amazing military leader. And we've seen Picard navigate politics and military situations and science missions. We've seen him do all these things for the Federation. And if you see him, that same man with that same ability and that same predilection to rise to power, sort of not necessarily power for himself, but just like rise to prominence. That same man put in a situation where he only cares to raise the Raymond's profile, and he did. And I think that is I think that's a part of the compelling story here, is that Picard is a man who has all this within him, and he has all this leadership potential, and he's been exercising it in a good way. But what if you turned it? And what if he's a different man? So I don't really find all that flaws. I mean, you can nitpick it. I was watching this thinking I would love to hear that story. Like I would love the Shinzon story. Like actually get Picard as a young man, like learning to navigate the Riemann military, like cannon fodder, and like becoming a leader and winning the Dominion War. You know, it sounds awesome.
Yeah, I don't know. Based on everything we know about the Romulans, it is just not adding up to me. But there is a lot of that kind of stuff in this movie, and it's like they're at Earth, right, for the wedding, and Janeway chooses them because they're the closest ship to Romulus.
Were they at Earth?
That's they were.
I didn't catch that.
They had just left Earth because they were in Alaska for the Riker wedding.
Okay, I didn't catch that. I'm guessing they were on their way. See, yeah, it does not add up. That part didn't add up at all. Like they had to leave Earth to take him to Titan, so they're leaving Earth on their way to Titan. They come across a planet. Wouldn't like almost essentially Titan have to be closer? If they're on their way to Titan? I don't know. Yeah.
No, I think they were saying the Titan. But maybe
Titan. They're going to the planet, or they're going to the ship to drop Riker off. That's where they're heading.
Yeah.
So they're going to the ship Titan, which is a Starfleet vessel. Which, if they're heading away from Earth toward Titan.
Oh yeah.
But then again, space is 3-dimensional. We always think about these in 2-dimensional terms. I don't know where Romulus is in comparison to Earth, and in comparison to where Titan is, and sure, it does seem really easy by just dropping B4 on this planet that they were able to like lure the Enterprise. It seems like they would have had to have one more line in there about how like they somehow affected getting Riker on the Titan or something like that to like lure them to the part of space they even needed to be in, because putting one positronic brain on a planet doesn't seem like it would draw the Enterprise to that part of space.
See, now I don't remember the Data being able to move around and stuff when he was off, when he was pulled apart. So that was weird. But also, like, you find a Soong robot or a Soong android, who knows where you found it? No answer to that. I mean, Shinzon had to have had people in the Federation.
Yeah, I agree. To make this happen, there had to have been insiders in the Federation. If this plot to get the Enterprise there is to be believed, and that's all interesting to me. I'd love to see the background story of like how he convinced the Enterprise to be close to Romulan space.
Yeah, because he had to hope that Janeway was going to be like, oh, you're closest to the blah, blah, blah. Maybe he would have known, like, oh, well, he's got to be closest right now, like, while they're doing this with Riker's wedding, because he knew everything about them. So I guess he knew what their plans were?
Yeah. Yep.
I don't know, dude.
I totally agree. It's putting B4 on that planet doesn't make a lot of sense as like the only thing that Shinzon did to draw them. There had to have been more behind the scenes. So And they don't get into that at all. And there's not room in this movie to get into much else. So I guess I don't really want them to get into it, but I also don't think their plan makes much sense without a little more. Speaking of B4, one of my biggest problems with this movie is the way that Data treats B4.
Oh, okay.
Data, after he has all these fights for his own rights and talking about how he is a person and all this stuff, he like doesn't even listen to Geordi's admonitions that B4 might be his own person and might not want your memories. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. That all was nuts.
Yeah, that was weird. But Data, just like he said, like to Picard, B4, is not me, and Shinzon is not you. Like they don't aspire to be greater than they are.
Yeah, well, I know that line, and it's stupid. How does he know that about B4? B4 is young and doesn't know anything yet, and he's still learning. Like, how does he know that about B4? He just assumes B4 is not as intelligent as me. He doesn't have all my experiences. He's not as valuable. That's like literally his assessment.
Here's my thing. I'm not sure what they were going for, or if they were forgetting things, because I would argue that in almost every part of this movie, Data has feelings. He seems to have feelings. But then
I disagree. I didn't think he had feelings at all. He didn't seem to have emotions in this movie.
I disagree with that. He seemed sad that he was shutting B4 off.
I don't agree at all. That was one of my big problems, is he seems to heartlessly shut B4 off. Remind me, in Insurrection, did he lose his emotion chip?
No.
So he still has the emotion chip, right?
Yeah, it was just shut off.
I have the complete opposite thought of this movie. I don't think he has emotions at all in this movie.
I mean, he actually tells Geordi, I don't feel anything.
He says, I feel nothing about it. He's like, don't you feel strange about giving him all of your emotions, like, or giving him all your experiences? And he's like, I feel nothing. And any person with emotions would feel something about that. And it was like they for some reason they reset Data to have no emotions in this movie. And there's a few moments where he seems, he's definitely a hero when he flies through space and goes over and like saves Picard and blows up the ship. And he has a sense of duty, but he's always had that. He does not seem to have emotions in this movie at all.
I disagree.
Man, like, I totally disagree with you on this, but yeah.
Okay, but listen, if you didn't have emotions, when you teleport Picard away and you know that's the last time you would see him, you are not going to sadly say goodbye.
Oh, yeah.
You are not.
Sure. But I don't think he says it that sadly, first off. But
I think he does.
I don't. I agree with you, but I just think that's kind of. I think the writing is all over the place.
I do think the writing is all over the place. Yeah, I agree with that.
I don't think that line about him saying goodbye gives me evidence that he has emotions throughout this entire movie, because the rest of the movie doesn't give me any sense that he has emotions.
Well, I don't agree with that though.
All right.
Because he seems sad and disappointed when B4 doesn't seem to be retaining any of the memories. And Geordi's even like, well, you have to keep in mind, Data, blah, 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 And then when he realizes that B4 has been giving information to Shinzon and he's got him locked up and he's about to shut him off, and he says indefinitely, there's pain on Data's face. He looks sad.
Yeah, I didn't take it that way. I mean, there's just different interpretations of this, of the acting in this movie, but I thought that he seemed, especially for a character that we, in the last two movies, has either gone overboard with emotion, and we know now that after First Contact, he can shut his emotions off or on. But in this movie, he does not seem to be a synthesis of those things, which is what I would have wanted for him. Yeah. I would have wanted for him to like find a balance for his emotions. He seems way more cold in this movie than even Data from the Next Generation. Like he doesn't. I don't find him to be a very, very emotional person in this movie.
I don't know when he told B4 indefinitely, and the B4 says, "How long is that?" and he shuts him off, and he goes. He looks sad to me, and he says, a very long time, brother. Like that felt sad to me. That he wouldn't have called him brother if that wasn't sad. He wouldn't have said it after. He wouldn't have said it.
I disagree. He called Lore brother, all the time back before he had emotions at all.
And he did lament. He did seem to lament that.
Yeah, this is the same. He's having the same type of emotional experience he did in the Next Generation for Lore. I think when he talks about shutting Lore down, he has this exact same exchanges. I just feel like they almost forgot that he had an emotion chip in this movie. Like he definitely has moments of like empathy or sympathy or whatever, but those are the same kind of moments he's had for 20 years on the show, or 20 since the show started. They don't feel different to me. They don't feel more deep or more felt or whatever. I don't know how to get at that. It just felt like after we followed this character's emotional journey in the last 3 movies about how he's had emotions he couldn't control or turn off. Next movie, he had emotions he could control and literally shut off. I don't really remember his emotional journey in Insurrection. I know that he decides to fight against the Federation at the beginning because of his emotion chip.
No, because of his ethical subroutines kicked in.
Ah, okay, gotcha. I thought the emotion chip was what caused him to fight the way he did. Never mind. Okay.
The emotion chip was deactivated, and he was essentially reset in Insurrection with no mention of it in Nemesis at all.
So it was reset. Does that mean does that mean he didn't have the emotions in this one? You're saying he did, though, right?
I'm saying he did not have them in Insurrection. It is not mentioned either way in Nemesis.
Okay, so maybe he didn't?
It feels like they're doing both. It feels like, to me, that they were trying to do both things.
Yeah. That's what bothers me, is I don't know what, after that's his primary journey has been to become more human and to become more emotional. And then to not mention it in the final movie, especially where the final movie is where he's going to sacrifice himself to save everyone, save his captain. I don't understand not even mentioning his emotion chip or what state he's in, because me and you are felt completely differently about this movie, and I don't even know how to quantify that, like how to talk about that, like why was it so different for us? Why was the experience so different? And the truth is because they didn't. I guess they were trying to show don't tell, but they didn't show us really, at least not clearly.
I think I'm taking previous information into the movie and looking at Brent Spiner's performance and saying, like, there's no reason to say goodbye to Picard after he's gone. He can't hear you. That was an emotional response from Data. There's no reason to say a very long time, brother, sadly, after B4 has been shut off, because he can't hear you.
I agree with you, except just to elicit an emotional response from the audience, which is what I feel like they were trying to do, but they did it in such a cold and clinical way, it felt like old Data to me.
But, if you're trying to make a decision about whether or not to force your own memories and experiences onto your brother, and you can't make a decision because of your emotions, you'd turn off your emotion chip.
See, and that I always wanted to explore this idea. I think that the ability to shut off his emotion chip runs kind of antithetical to the idea of being human for sure. And like if that's always been his goal, when he shuts off his motion chip in Nemesis, I always wanted them to explore the idea that like, oh, that's actually kind of not how emotions work, Data. If you shut them off when they're undesirable, then that's not really, you're not embracing your emotions. You're not really allowing yourself to feel them. And that's not okay. Like
he's just dipping a toe in, man.
Yeah, no, I agree. But I always wanted them to go deeper with that, and we just never got that opportunity.
Well, I feel like and I agree with you. Don't get me wrong, but there is something like when you look at Generations, and he's like telling Picard, "I no longer want these emotions," and Picard's like, "No, part of being human is having to deal with your feelings." Well, now that he has the ability to, we've got it in First Contact where he just shuts off his emotions, and Picard says, "There are times I envy you, Mr. Data." Mm-hmm. And Data realizes, look, this is more important. My emotions are going to compromise me. They need me at 100%.
Sure.
This isn't about my personal journey anymore. And I feel like that's probably what he did. Probably big red flag here, headcanon, y'all. But
sure,
he probably said the same thing in Nemesis.
See, I completely agree with you that in First Contact, if you're about to go into a battle, maybe that's the right thing to do. Shut off your emotions. You got to do it. But that I see a slippery slope there where if you can turn your emotions off and on, and then your emotions is what allows you to empathize with others. And Data has an ethical subroutine or whatever, but like, I don't know. It just seemed like such a interesting moment in First Contact. I wish they had touched on again, and they never did.
Mm-hmm. Well, they sort of did though, because they had the Borg Queen reactivate it and then like tempt him with it.
That's true. That's true. But I guess they didn't play with the idea in a way that gave him agency. They played with the idea in a way that, like, the whole point I'm saying is like the danger of being able to shut off your emotions, but is the idea I wanted them to play with. What they did with the Borg Queen was like, this is what happens when you can't, which is the opposite story of what I'm talking about. But yeah, I don't know. I feel like this movie is super dicey for the story of Data because I don't know what they're doing with his emotions. I don't like the way he treats B4. I don't like that, especially Geordi, who in many ways has been Data's guide and his sort of conscience through trying to learn these things about being human. Geordi is like, hey man, maybe you should think about this. Like maybe you should let B4 develop as his own being, and he just like says nope. Like he doesn't really have a good argument either. And the whole thing about B4 not being able to B4 not wanting to better himself, like you just don't know that. In no way do you know that.
No,
and I don't like that at all. And then when he shuts him down, to me he seems cold. I get that he does say goodbye, brother, but he also says very similar things to Lore. It just feels like an emotionless thing, and he also feels like he doesn't value B4. And it just feels like he's treating B4 like Maddox wanted to treat him. That's how it feels. And I'm like, come on, man, come on. He's not just a thing. If you are more than a thing, so is he. And like, give him some, I don't know. You wouldn't shut down a human indefinitely because they did something wrong, or especially if they're just being used by Shinzon,
Well, but I feel like I don't see that. I see him kind of saying, B4 hasn't had my experiences. He'll have my memories, but he won't have had my experiences, and he will be a different person. And he's like a parent. He wants to impart all of his knowledge into B4, and allow B4 all the potential he can have. Yeah. To become everything he needs to be. And when he needs to shut him down, it's because he's a spy. He's been programmed to do some wretched shit.
Sure.
And he's sad about that. But he has to, so for the safety of the ship and the mission, he has to shut him down for a minute. Like, he doesn't know how long.
Yeah. I just I agree with you, and I don't think we always try on these Picard Primer episodes to discuss how this will relate to Picard, the show that's coming. I think it will relate in exposition ways, but I don't think the stuff we're talking about with B4 will matter at all. Like, B4 might be a character. He might be Captain Data out there somewhere.
Maybe, yeah.
But
he certainly was in the Countdown comics. Not
yes.
the Countdown to Picard comics.
We never got to confirm that it was B4, right?
No, it was. We got it confirmed. It was Captain Data of the Enterprise F or whatever it was, or E or whatever.
And he was previously B4? We know that? Okay. I thought that was just an assumption that was made.
I think it was actually said, but
I don't think it said in the comics. Maybe it was said by someone related, but I never heard it said in the comic. We were, because we all like after those comics were like speculating. I guess this is what happened, but I don't think I don't know. We'll have to go back and check. But Yeah, so I don't think we're going to get anything related to this. I think that I don't think that this ethical question. I think we're always going to have this I think they're going to have an idealized version of the Data Picard relationship displayed, sort of the relationship we get from Measure of a Man, because I think that this particular episode with B4 and the way he treats him, to me, really complicates the ethical questions posed by Data through his entire run, and especially Measure of a Man. And there's a great essay on this from Trexpertise, actually, where he doesn't. I don't think he agrees with what I'm saying, but he goes into how Data views other androids and their consciousnesses, and he talks about Lal and how at the end of that. I haven't seen that episode in years. I actually really want to rewatch it because I think, especially
The Offspring.
The Offspring. I want to rewatch that episode. I feel like maybe that should have been in a rewatch because I wondered if that might be related to this character that we're getting. But Data, at the end of that episode, Data assimilates her information into his own. And to Data, that was keeping her alive is the supposition that's why he's not saddened by her death, is because he has her with him in a way that's so real to him that it's different than the way we experience loss. And it's a really interesting essay from Trexpertise. I highly recommend.
Okay.
But let's see other things. There were very few good Worf moments in this movie, but there were two, and one hilarious and one very good. And the first one, hilarious. I love him drunkenly or hungoverly dropping his head and saying Irving Berlin.
Yeah, it's really, I like that.
Really, really wonderful. And then I really love the Romulans fought with honor. Yes, they did, Mr. Worf. Yes, they did.
Yeah. I like that. That was a nice little character growth moment for Worf.
Yeah, it really was.
These people I have hated for 15 years.
The people I've hated and mistrusted because they killed his parents, right?
There was a whole lot of stuff with Romulans.
Yeah. So he hates the Romulans, and this moment where he says the Romulans fought with honor. He has very little dialogue in this movie, so that one moment was a good one for him to get. I liked it a lot.
I did like the Romulan ale should be illegal.
It is.
Yep.
That's great. It's great. The fight on the scimitar is straight up out of Star Wars. The laser fight that they have. Even I think there's even a Star Wars scene where they fly a shuttle-sized aircraft through the hallways of a Star War.
Well, I don't know. I don't remember.
Yeah, when Picard runs backwards, shooting his laser, running backwards through a door and then slams it closed. That is literally a scene from A New Hope that Han Solo runs backwards into a door and slams it shut. And it's this is very much copying what they do over on the Star War.
Well, the Star War. You're so old. Now, Stuart Baird was not a Star Trek fan. He had never seen the Star Trek franchise. He'd never seen Star Trek Next Generation. He didn't know anything. And he was just oh, well, this is sci-fi. This needs to be this, this, and this. And also, we need to deepen Worf's voice to make him sound more alien. And Data's eyes don't look alien enough, so let's get some more opaque contact lenses. And I
noticed that they were very different. And I don't even normally notice stuff like that. But yeah, it's fine. The movie has some interesting parts, but I don't mind them bringing action into it. I really don't mind the laser fights. They're fine. What I don't like is that they focus so much on the laser fights that I get very little of the stuff I really want. I do love the scene where Picard tries to convince the Shinzon hologram, as it were, in his ready room to come back. He's like, I'm also I'm also a mirror for you is the line. And I just, oh man, it's so good.
See, it would have made more sense to me if this was more of a struggle of ideologies, and this was more of a talky movie, because it would make sense to me because they're in the heart of Romulan space, not just the Scimitar, but he's the Praetor. Shinzon's the Praetor now, and he was brought to power by the military. If we're going with that ridiculous concept, there should be like at least 10 or so Romulan vessels that would be around Romulus protecting it, but there are no Romulan ships anywhere around the homeworld. There's only the Scimitar. That makes no sense. And maybe it's because Shinzon sent them away.
They can also all cloak, though, right?
But why? I mean, they had a whole fight. They had a fight with Dinatra and her people. They had two different ships with the Enterprise fighting against the Scimitar. There were no other Romulan vessels backing Shinzon up. Yeah. And if the military did defect, they should all be helping the Enterprise and fighting the Scimitar.
Well, they do with the 3 ships, but we don't know.
2 ships.
2? I thought it was 3. Okay.
I thought it was 2, but whatever it was. 2 or 3 ships, whatever it was. Still way less than you would think.
The military, yeah. Well, it sounds like it may have only been a certain small faction of the military that thought better of it. That's not what she says, but that may be the case. Anyway, so if I had to change one thing of this movie, though, of all things, I would have the Viceroy die in the moment when Deanna fires at him.
Yeah.
Like, it would get rid of the Viceroy fight, which is one of the dumbest things I've ever seen. Like, why in the actual fuck does the Viceroy dive down that garbage chute?
I don't know.
It makes no sense. They're having a firefight. I'm assuming they're trying to get to the bridge to get Picard, I guess. Like, I don't even know why they boarded the ship in the first place. There's no motivation to it at all. The only thing I can think is they still want Picard to try to, like, help Shinzon. But
yeah,
they get on the ship, and he, instead of trying to work his way up toward the bridge, he just dives down a garbage chute because he knows Riker will follow him, I guess, because he doesn't know Riker at all. That makes no sense. He doesn't have any reason to have a beef with Riker. Like, the only beef Riker has with him is that he basically mind raped his wife, which is a beef for sure. But I kind of wish they hadn't. I kind of felt a little antiquated where it was like, we already saw this badass scene where Troy used her mind powers to find the ship and blow it up. I would have liked that to have been her own vengeance against the Viceroy, and that would have been the moment he died. Like, I think that would have been more effective. It felt like she already did that to the Viceroy, got in his brain, and she's like, she won't get out of my mind. Like, that was really just a satisfying moment after what he did to her. And then to just be like, also, you know what? Her husband needs to beat you up. It just felt silly. It just felt real silly.
Yeah, I think I would have preferred for her to, like, mentally cripple the guy somehow.
Yeah,
you know?
Yeah, no, absolutely. That would have been amazing.
Fire, you know?
Yeah, like, just see, and she kind of does that, but I would have liked to see him after the ship is blown up. Like, Shinzon's begging for, like, Viceroy, I need you to da-da-da, and he's just like a babbling idiot who can't, like, function because she just completely destroyed him.
But, you know, that whole scene where the way they lit it was just so 1960s and so awful.
Oh, for
just
sure.
Awful. Like, don't put the light on the eyes. That's so weird.
Yeah, it was just, they were going for a thing, which I respect them going for a thing. I'm assuming that's not actually how it's lit. That's just the way we're seeing it because we're seeing it through her eyes or whatever.
Yeah, I don't know, man. It was bad. It just looked bad for me.
I love how Picard sounds like Kirk when he thinks he has Shinzon where he wants him. He realized he wants to look me in the eye, and he just sounds like Kirk. And when Shinzon says, "I hope you're not dead, Picard," he says, "Oh, or I hope you're still alive, Picard." He's like, "Oh yes, I am." It just sounded so much like One Moment Con. Like, it just sounded like,
"Come with you now, Con."
Put on my glasses, Con. Like, it's that beautiful moment when a captain of the Enterprise is in full control in the face of grave danger, and I love that moment.
Yeah, there's a fair amount in this movie that's trying too hard to be Star Trek 2 and 3.
Sure.
Yeah, you have Data dying, the possible, he's transferring his Katra over to B4 to absent friends, which is that's a maritime thing. But
yep.
Yeah, Shinzon was basically Khan, but with way less motivation.
Yeah. Oh, and also in that battle scene, I love the hull breach on the bridge. It's dumb, and it's like just pew pew space fighty, but man, it's cool. Like the view screen actually becoming a hole in the ship, and then people flying out of it.
Yeah, I think that was the first time we actually really got that.
Yeah,
and that's a thing that the Abrams movies get credit for, but Nemesis totally did it first. And in hindsight, the best part about that is the helmsman that gets sucked out. That's Bryan Singer. Bye, pedo.
Oh, gosh. Oh, man. Okay. Last little quibble with this movie for me is...
Oh, okay.
And this is me being spoiled as hell, because I just got done watching... The Watchmen, which was the best show I've ever seen. Like, without categorization, that is the best show I've ever seen. And one of the things they do in that show is they pick songs that are so perfect for the show that the song itself like tells part of the story that's going on in a way that is so impactful, and the lyrics will like lead you through moments of the show in ways that like blew me away, just completely blew me away. And they have this thing where Data sings Blue Skies Smiling at Me at the beginning of the movie, and then at the end of the movie he like remembers it, and he has like some like a little whatever, a little thing where he remembers that line from that song. Could have been a better song.
It could have been a better song?
It could have been a better song for that specific thing, because at the end when he's like singing the line over and over, and then Picard has to tell him what the next line is, so he finishes it. Like, it could have been something poignant, and I did not feel like it was poignant at all. I felt like it was like generic sort of like, hey, hope, there's hope, which is fine, but they could have got, if they had like, there's a huge American songbook you can dig through and find the perfect song that like elicits the same sort of fun at the beginning, but at the end has like a haunting element. And Watchmen did that so well that I'm spoiled as hell. And watching them do it on this, I was like, could have been a better song. Could have been a way better song.
I don't know.
I think back to this movie and that moment where he sings, and the moment at the end, and until I rewatched it, I didn't even remember what song it was. It just doesn't resonate with me as like important. It just feels like they're using it as a clue to the fact that Data's in there somewhere.
Yeah,
but I wish they'd done something with that, because it's the last line of the movie. It would have been nice if it was like something really haunting and really like beautiful, but instead it's just kind of never seen things shining so bright.
Well, I mean, it's, about things being bad and then things turn good again. And there's hope.
There's hope.
What else is Star Trek about?
No, sure, but that's a very broad use. It's very broad. It could have been specific, broad, is all I'm getting at.
I liked it. And I liked that recent... There's at least one or two recent Picard ads that are using the Blue Skies.
Oh, really? Oh, that's fun. Yeah. That's fun.
Yeah. So I'm down with that. I like the song. And for me, I would say everything at the wedding was great. Almost everything was great anyway. Would have liked to have heard more from Wesley. I would have liked to have seen more with the cast together, since this is their last outing. And, less Shinzon. I would have liked all of that stuff to be explained better, but even the redux on Star Trek 3 was fine. And I think my favorite line in this movie is when Riker is trying to remember what that song was that from the first time he saw Data in Encounter at Farpoint. And he's just clearly heartbroken that he can't remember what the song is now. Like, that just... a few of them played it really well that Data was gone. Like, I bought Troy and Riker specifically reacting to it. Yeah.
Man, I've had a hard time taking Riker seriously after everything that happened with the Viceroy. And that's not his fault. It really isn't. I think that Jonathan Frakes does a great job in these movies, and in general, his love of Trek and doing well with directing and everything. But like, that Viceroy scene was just so over the top and silly that it like really affected me for the rest of the movie. I was just like, all right, whatever.
Yeah, well, I don't do that. I see what's good. I try to see what's good that's there, and then even if the bad parts gave me an overall bad opinion of the movie, like, I feel like this movie has a lot of the same problems that Star Trek V does, where it's like they get all of the crew interactions and all of that stuff, like the theme of what the movie should be about, like really right, and then there's just a bunch of bullshit in the middle. It doesn't make a lot of sense.
Yeah, that's how I feel too about this. Because I do, I'm with you. I really do try not to let it sour me too much, but man, I really that scene bothers me. Mm-hmm. All right. Well, any you want to get into quotes and trivia?
Sure.
I think I've already said all of mine that I had saved for quotes.
There were some moments of like, I've got like anti-favorite quotes, like the Commander Denatra does, you're gonna owe me a drink after this, or I'm gonna owe you a drink, whatever it was. And then after they get their asses handed to them, they're like, that drink is gonna have to wait, Captain. Like, okay, it's now the time.
Right.
I loved the personal log though. We don't get a lot of those in the movies. We don't get a lot of captain's logs, but I love that Picard's and like 1,000 other commanders on 1,000 other battlefields. I wait for the dawn. Like, yeah. I liked that a lot.
Yeah, me too.
I'm not sure. I don't think there should have been a whole lot of waiting because there's a Romulan fleet. They're at the door. Yeah, I've said that already. It's just, here's a thing that I absolutely hated. Shinzon, Janeway does it first, where she's just like, "Oh, Picard, the Borg, the Sona, the blah blah. You get all the easy assignments. Like, you're just gonna mention the last like 2 or 3 movies."
Yeah, thought that was real dumb.
Like, they don't have adventures in between. They don't have assignments. And also, I'm pretty sure the Borg, he was specifically assigned not to do that.
Yep. That's fair.
So that wasn't an assignment he had. Kate?
Kate. Okay. Well, are those all your anti-quotes? Are those all your favorite quotes, Dave? Did you get done with your favorite quotes?
Probably. Oh, here's one I hated. I didn't hate it when I first saw this movie, but now I'm a little more woke. And I'm annoyed by the Mr. Troy thing.
That's fair. That is just a joke about how how emasculating would it be if you took your wife's name, which is no longer woke.
Yeah. I mean, it's just real. It was a dumb joke to begin with, but yeah,
it's exactly the kind of joke of the time it's of the era. Say what you will, but it is of the era. Never really bothered me, but yeah, now it does. Is that time marches on, man. Times they are a changing.
Here was a thing that in these woke times felt a little strange to me, and I can't place my finger on it. But when Data says, "Ladies and gentlemen, and various transgendered and transgendered species," like, wait, what? Because some humans. Yeah, man. Okay.
Yeah. No, I agree. It was like a weird, like, attempt at wokeness, but then you, like, left out the idea that humans could be that.
Or
that species, that it's a choice, or that, or that it's something that it can happen amongst a species. Like, it's like a thing that, like, he's making the statement that, like, there are transgender things out there. Mm-hmm. It's like, it's not woke at all compared to today's standards.
Yeah. Now here's my headcanon for it within the Star Trek universe.
All right.
In my version of the Star Trek universe, if, like, most people, if they are born into a gender they don't feel like they're appropriate for, or a sex they don't feel like they're appropriate for, that shit is sorted when they're a kid and appropriately changed before they ever get to, whatever. They have intense psychological stuff that they can figure all that stuff out and go like, oh, well, this makes sense.
Right.
And, like, you can turn Kirk into a Romulan, Picard into a Romulan. This is child's play. We can just fix this right now.
Yeah, people.
This is an outpatient procedure.
Sure. Different times in the Star Trek universe.
So there would be no transgendered.
Well, I think that would still make them. I think it'd still be transgender. But
they just wouldn't. They wouldn't say that though.
Right? Maybe not. But it also still supposes the idea of two genders instead of, like, some sort of spectrum or. Some sort of like, it doesn't, not everyone who considers themselves, we're getting out of our depth here, because we're definitely two cis white dudes talking about wokeness and transgender community, but, like, it basically, in my mind, people do whatever the fuck you want with your own body, like, whatever, man.
Well, yeah, I'm just that's not my I'm not making a statement either way, even though, like, do whatever you want with your body. I just made the statement, but
I'm just saying, like, there's all kinds of spectrums of people deciding they want to be physically changed, or maybe they just want to change the way they act and dress, and they still consider themselves transgender. And then, there's all kinds of gradients of that in our current society. So I assume in the Trek world, where that sort of stuff is probably much more accepted, because everyone is used to much more difference and cultural sensitivity and stuff. So,
all right. So I have an addendum to my headcanon for this.
Okay, give me the addendum.
Data's an android and he doesn't get it.
All right, I like it.
This was Data's, shaky way of trying to address everyone.
Blame it on the android. Just blame it on the android.
Yeah.
All right. Well, let's get off this topic, because neither of us are nearly informed enough to say anything, really.
People are people, and we should treat them like people.
Yeah. That is the message of Star Trek in general. People are people, and no matter what they look like, act, are shaped like, or whatever. And, like, androids are people too. All beings that have sentience should be respected, and da-da-da-da-da. All that shit. Let's talk about some trivia. Let's go from this, like, very walking on a tight wire, trying not to say the wrong thing, to some trivial stuff. Come on, throw some trivia at me.
All right. Out of all those things that we complained about for this movie, the thing Rick Berman wasn't crazy about, the inverted R and the E in the Nemesis title.
Oh, good. He's got his finger on the pulse. Wait, what? The R in Star Trek was inverted?
Yeah.
Okay.
The R in Trek and the E in Nemesis.
Okay, gotcha.
Were invented because of
the
mirrors.
Mirrors. I get it.
All right. So there could have been something even dumber in this movie.
Oh, yeah? Please. Enlighten me.
Jerry Ryan was asked to reprise the role of 7 of 9, and she was going to be at Riker and Troy's wedding. But Jerry Ryan refused because, 1, she wanted to avoid being too attached to Star Trek, and 2, she was confused as to why 7 would attend the wedding of people she did not know.
That is hilarious.
By the way, the song Riker couldn't remember was Pop Goes the Weasel.
That's right. I vaguely remember that.
Oh my gosh, man. I just saw this. Admiral Janeway's comments to Captain Picard in the original script called for her to name, quote, the Borg, the Sona, the Romulans, even that pesky Dr. Sauron.
That's so dumb.
It was dumb enough the way they did it.
I know. It's so dumb. Well, I'm glad that didn't end up in the movie. Can't blame them for something they didn't actually do.
Yeah. No, I can blame... Someone decided to write that into a script. Someone typed that.
Yeah, but you know how it is. You write things and then you change them.
Mm-hmm.
I've written dumb lines and then gone back and changed them.
You write stuff as a placeholder sometimes, but you don't actually write it into just don't turn it in.
Don't turn in that script. Yeah. All right. Yep. It's pretty bad.
Oh, this actually, I put this down and forgot about it. But look, John Logan, the screenwriter, wanted the battle in the Basin Rift to be fought with a fleet of vessels, not just 4. However, this would have been too prohibitively expensive.
That makes sense, and your problem with it makes sense. What would be nice is if they had just had like a nice little line about how, Shinzon had disabled the fleet, or something had happened to the fleet, or something to prevent it. Like it's easy to build those lines into your script where it just like makes us not have to headcanon things so much.
Shinzon sent the fleet ahead to attack Earth. Something, I don't know.
Yeah. No, that actually could have been really tense if the fleet was on a different course and you had like a big armada of Federation and Romulan vessels facing off or whatever. Could have been like the battle for the Federation was about to begin and Picard had to stop it.
See, the thing is, I was thinking they could have said like, oh, well, the Federation is still reeling from their war with the Dominion, because that's totally true.
Right.
But the Romulans joined that war and fought alongside the Federation.
Yep, it's true.
So they also would be diminished, which, they might have suffered more casualties than the Federation did, and that might be why there's not more of a fleet.
Yeah,
I can headcanon this shit all day.
Yeah, we can have all kinds of circular discussions about what happened here, but it is the movie is what it is. The movie is what it is. Any other?
I'm trying to help people who want to like this movie, Matt.
Well,
no, there's no more trivia.
All right, well, let's get to the song then. This song is one of my favorites so far from the album. I had a lot of fun recording it. It is inspired by the idea of Picard meeting Shinzon, this sort of darker mirror version of himself, and knowing that he could be that is a person he could have turned out. And that's what the song's about. I hope you guys dig it. This song is called Heroes. It's by The Garage. It will be on the album that is coming out in just a couple of weeks. 10 song album. Finished, man. Almost.
It's good stuff too.
I'm getting it mixed this week, and this is an early demo, but all the songs you've heard so far will be released in full mixed and mastered fashion on Spotify and Apple in just a few weeks. So very excited about it. So, all right. Peace.
Live long and prosper.
I've seen the darker side of me, the one I'd rather you not see, the one I hide away so deep that even I can still believe that by the grace of none go I, and the good I do comes from inside. But faced with a monster that has my eyes, we can see that all of this is lies. Everyone can love and hate. Everyone can be pushed till they break. And all of your philosophies about the evil that men do fail if they don't recognize that potential within you and me. You're not the default hero of the story. With this life, I do the best I can. I also do the worst like every man. So before you judge another sinful hands, be sure to view the soil on which you stand. Everyone can love and hate. Everyone can be pushed till they break. And all of your philosophies about the evil that men do fail if they don't recognize that potential within you and me. You're not the default hero of the story. Heroes in the story at all, but there's no villains. Maybe that's a reason we should love one and all, despite our difference. Maybe there's no heroes in the story at all, but there's no villains. Maybe that's a reason we should love one and all, despite our difference. To reach out to us, hit us up at StarTrekUcast.com, at Star Trek Ucast on Twitter, or search for the Star Trek Universe Podcast on Instagram or Facebook. And if you want to hear more from David C. Robertson, search for the DC On Screen podcast in your podcast app now, or go to maladjusted.tv for his comedy sketches. If you want to hear more from me, Matthew Carroll, search for the Marvel Cinematic Universe podcast or the Orville Universe podcast in your podcast app, or check out my music. Just search for Matthew Carroll wherever you listen to music.